Welcome to the Lawyers Emotional Intelligence Book Club session number 10, March 22nd, 2017. My name is Dave Scriven-Young, a lawyer focusing on litigation, environmental law, and construction law from Chicago, Illinois. We're helping to create the next generation of lawyers with high emotional intelligence through a weekly book club and daily practical posts. During our book club discussions, we'll do a deep dive into books that will help us to develop emotional intelligence skills, and specifically think about how we can begin to use these skills in our law practice. I'm here on Facebook Live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central for this discussion, and it is a discussion. Please liberally use the box below to ask questions or to make comments. I certainly don't sit here as an expert. And on the contrary, I will be learning along with all of you. And so I'm really interested in hearing your opinions and observations. I really look forward to learning from all of you tonight. As a reminder, to keep up with this book club, I encourage you to join the online discussion with our Facebook group at facebook.com/lawyersEQ and on my Twitter account, twitter.com/ILEnviroLawBlog. I just wanted to welcome everyone who has joined. And today we're going to be working through Chapter 3 of the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. And Chapter 3 is what emotional intelligence looks like, understanding the 4 skills. And so what we're going to be learning about today is that to truly improve your ability in the 4 emotional intelligence skills, you need to better understand each skill and what it looks like in action. And that's what the authors of today's chapter is talking about. So we're going to go through each of the skills, emotional intelligence skills. And as I talked about yesterday, there are certainly some skills that people are better at, or some skills that people really need help on. As I discovered in my having taken the test that's in the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book, there's certainly a lot of skills that I need help on. So today we're going to be just discussing the 4 skills, and then after this, it's really going to be a jumping off point where we're going to be talking about each individual skill and how we can do better with each of those skills. So just as a reminder, going back, there were basically 2 categories of emotional intelligence skills. First category is personal competence. The second category is social competence. Under personal competence, we have the self-awareness skills, the self-management skills, and under the social competence, we have the social awareness skills and the relationship management skills. And really, they really actually sort of build on each other. And it's sort of interesting, as you'll see when we go along with this today. So as I said, under personal competence, there are really 2 different skills: self-awareness skills and self-management skills. And we're going to be talking about today not only what those skills are, but really examples of what it looks like when you have those skills and what it looks like when you don't have those skills. And then part of our discussion today is going to be talking about when you're an attorney, why these skills are important and what happens when you don't have these skills or a high level of these skills. Let's talk about self-awareness, so our first personal competence skill. The authors say that self-awareness is your ability to accurately predict your own emotions in the moment and understand your tendencies across situations. Self-awareness includes staying on top of your typical reactions to specific events, challenges, and people. And when you're self-aware, you're far more likely to pursue the right opportunities, put your strengths to work, and perhaps most importantly, keep your emotions from holding you back. And so what examples of when you're not self-aware? So what happens when you don't know, can't accurately predict your emotions? Number 1, if you're not self-aware, you project and push your stress and sense of urgency onto other people. You may come across as defensive or aggressive. Your passion actually gets in the way, which is interesting. Everyone tells you to live with passion. Sometimes you have so much passion, or you show that passion in such a way that it really gets in the way of what you're trying to accomplish, and you come across as defensive or aggressive or perhaps overbearing. If you don't have self-awareness, you might live in your own world. You don't recognize what might trigger you, and you don't know how you're perceived by others. And when you're self-aware, you manage your own emotions. They don't manage you. You remain calm, cool, and collected, even when you're feeling frustrated or angry. You're open and authentic. You're honest about how you're feeling without getting bent out of shape about it. And you're aware of your own tone, and you keep the conversation appropriate. So I think the best way to get into the discussion, I want to thank everyone who has joined so far. We're talking about the four emotional intelligence skills. The first one being self-awareness. Is whether you don't know, if you don't have self-awareness, you certainly don't know what's going to trigger you into having a lot of having emotions that will get in the way of seeking the right opportunities. And so when you're self-aware, and we're going to go through in this book club, certainly skills or things to do to help develop your skill of self-awareness. But you're going to be able to see what your emotions are. And so you might have a better understanding, for example, if you're self-aware. And I encourage other people to join and tell me, certainly, if you're an attorney watching this or not, why would self-awareness be good for you to have? And I think certainly the list of things that when you're self-aware, you manage your emotions, etc. But for attorneys specifically, I think it would be important because you don't want people to be able to push your buttons and then you're sort of off the track. So you're on a certain track, whether you're giving an argument in court, or you're in trial, or you're in settlement negotiations or discovery negotiations, whatever it is. The question is, if someone pushes your buttons, what the authors call your triggers, if they trigger you, and then they can just certainly throw you off track of what you're trying to accomplish, and your emotions get away, your passions get in the way, and then perhaps you become defensive, you become aggressive, and certainly, and that's not to say as an attorney you never want to be aggressive or you never want to be defensive. I think what the authors are trying to get at here is that you are not aware of your defensiveness or your aggressiveness. You're not aware that your emotions are getting in your way. And so, as an attorney, what you want to do is you want to manage your emotions and be aware of what's going on. So, if you want to remain calm, cool, and collected, that is what you're going to be. If you want to, as a result of what's happening, become aggressive or become defensive, that's fine. But as long as you're aware, and that's where self-awareness comes in, you're aware of what's going on. And again, I want to caution everyone that I think when I was reading this chapter, I was thinking, this is a lot sort of in like a business context where, most of the time I think people expect, sort of a very calm demeanor. You don't get your emotion, you don't show a lot of your emotions, and you don't become aggressive. Where, in a legal situation where you are sort of paid, where you're paid to be an advocate, sometimes becoming aggressive actually helps you. Sometimes becoming defensive helps you, and so you just want to be aware of what is going on, what's triggering you. So you can say to yourself, okay, well, this person is trying to push my buttons, trying to trigger me into having an emotional reaction. Do I want to have an emotional reaction, or do I want to simply just be calm about it? So you get to decide when you're self-aware. So the second part of the personal competence is your self-management. And self-management occurs, it's sort of, once you have self-awareness and you understand what your emotions are and what your triggers are, then building on it is into self-management, because it is what happens when you act or don't act. So essentially your behavior once you're aware of your emotions. So in the words of the author, it's your ability to use your awareness of your emotions to stay flexible and direct your behavior positively. Real results come from putting your momentary needs on hold to pursue larger, more important goals. And those who manage themselves the best are able to see things through without cracking. And so I think this is pretty interesting, and it's not really what I thought about when you were talking, when I initially thought about self-management. Um, Really acting in a way that is sort of more of a marathon instead of doing something very quick. Because oftentimes something happens and you may want to strangle the person, whether it's opposing counsel or whomever. But it's not in your interest to do that. It's not in your interest to um, have a very quick response that might be biting or might be aggressive if that's not to your benefit. And so let's go through sort of examples of when you lack self-management skills. So you might respond too quickly, too sharply, too disjointedly. You might be leading to, and it would lead you to being panicked when you're stressed, and to outbursts that are not thought out before being expressed. And that's what I was just talking about. An example of having an emotional outburst, or maybe a response to an email. I mean, like today, for example, I got several emails from opposing counsel that I really just wanted to send off a very quick response, sort of nasty or arrogant response, and I sort of thought about it, and that wasn't the way to do it. The way to do it was a sort of more think about it, and then to have some thought before actually expressing what your response was going to be. When you lack self-management skills, you also let your emotions rule your behavior. And you might, for example, impact your team when you don't have self-management skills, because you're telling everyone the details about everything that stresses you out. So, which creates more stress and negativity, and it affects the people around you. You see that all the time. You see people complaining, and I understand, people complain, but it's interesting because sometimes people think, I think, again, people that don't have self-management skills often think that they need to tell everyone the details about every single thing that happened that were bad. And all that does is really stress out the person who's telling the story, because they're basically reliving what occurred. And that creates stress and negativity in the people that they're telling the story to. And again, I'm not saying you should never complain. I'm not saying you should never explain, things when things start bumming you out, etc. But I'm talking about basically telling everyone that maybe is in your team or in your firm, every person you come in contact with, why something was so horrible, and sort of every detail of it, and that really just stresses people out. Um, but when you have self-management skills, you have patience and understanding, actively listening and responding with knowledge and wisdom. You're sensitive, yet direct and to the point. You communicate well and think on your feet. You handle stressful and confrontational situations politely and professionally. You're able to work with other people whose style you're not a fan of. And you don't speak negatively about someone who has a different idea or opinion. And so, again, this book, I think, is written more sort of in the corporate context as opposed to a law firm context. But I think it's helpful because, oftentimes we're in a situation where you might be meeting with partners, or meeting with some of your associates, and you're basically having a strategy session about what to do. And then at the end of the day, a person with self-management skills can make their point without making someone else feel like they're dumb, or that just because they have a different idea that there's something wrong with them. And then the other thing is, and I say this all the time as attorneys, every attorney has their own style, whether it's people who are more aggressive, or they object a lot, or they don't object a lot, or they pretend that they're reading the newspaper while their client is being deposed. I mean, a lot of people have their own style and what they do as attorneys, and so what you're able to do when you have self-management skills is to work with every one of those persons, and even if you decide, really it's not appropriate to pretend you're reading the newspaper while your client is deposed, or maybe you are reading the newspaper, whatever. But you're still able to work with that person, and you're not so bent out of shape after watching that you're not able to work with that person, because you may need help from that person down the line, and you sort of understand the long-term consequences of what's occurring, or what may occur if you very quickly just call that person out or something like that. So you may tell the person, look, I don't, privately, I don't, from my perspective, I don't think that's appropriate. But you still say, look, and everyone has their own style. So something like that. If you have self-management skills, that's what's going to be helpful. So if you look at this, it's definitely in every attorney's self-interest to not only have self-awareness skills, but also self-management skills. And so that's why these personal competence skills are things that are really going to assist all of us as attorneys, and me included. As I always say, I'm not an expert, and I certainly don't definitely count myself in as my test results show of someone who can work on a lot of these skills. But I think both of these skills are going to be very, very helpful, especially in the context where you're dealing with, advocates on the other side, whether it's your opposing counsel or the client on the other side, or even the judge, they might be, or arbitrator or mediator that you're dealing with. Not everything goes your way as an attorney, and so it's dealing with those things that occur. Not everyone is going to agree with every motion that you file, even though it may be a very simple thing that you think everyone would agree with, whether it's getting an extension of time or amending a complaint, whatever it is. But you need to have self-management skills to understand what to do when things don't go your way. And so we're going to talk about that in our book club. So let's move on to the social competence skills. And again, we're talking about skills, two different skills: the social awareness skills and the relationship management skills. Let's talk first about social awareness. Social awareness is your ability to accurately pick up on emotions in other people and understand what is really going on with them. So just backing up a moment, again, this all builds on each other, all of these skills. So first we dealt with what is going on with my own emotions, being self-aware of that, and then being able to look at those emotions, my own emotions, and decide how I'm going to act. Now you're going to be looking at being aware of emotions in other people and what's going on with those people. And this often means perceiving what other people are thinking and feeling, even if you do not feel the same way. So even if you're having, the crummiest day of your life, you got a bad ruling, or you're dealing with someone on the phone who's being rude to you, or you're dealing, and then you have a client. So you're in a bad mood, and then you have a client that comes in who is in a really bad situation, and they're not feeling anything what you're feeling as far as being angry. Maybe they're sad, maybe they're happy, who knows? But you need this concept is to be aware of, so you're being self-aware, but then you're being aware of how this client is thinking and feeling. So what we want to do is we want to be able to listen and observe what's going on around us. And in order to do that, we have to stop doing many things that we like to do. So here's a laundry list of things that we do that stops us from being self-aware. So we have to stop talking and start listening. We have to stop the monologue that's running through our mind. We have to stop anticipating the point that the other person is about to make. And we have to stop thinking ahead what we're going to say next. And you hear this all the time. And and again, one of the skills that we're going to be talking about during this book club is listening skills, because it's so important to be able to, if you want to understand what someone is trying to say to you, or understand, what the person is thinking or feeling, you have to be able to stop yourself and actually actively listen to the person that you're dealing with. And so, what are the things that come about when you're not socially? Well, you don't listen well, and instead you're thinking about what you want to say to them. You're not patient. You don't allow others to feel good about their ideas when you feel like you have a better plan. And again, think about that in a business context, not necessarily in an adversarial relationship, because sometimes you don't want opposing counsel to feel good about their ideas, because you may be right, or it's in your client's interest to have them understand why they're wrong. But if you're in meetings and if you're not socially aware, the mood and the evolution of opinions are lost on you. You don't understand what the mood of the people are in the meeting. You don't understand how opinions have evolved during that meeting. And you also get focused on a particular issue, and so focused on that issue that you don't see the forest for the trees. Now, when you are socially aware, here are some of the things that occur. So you're able to read the emotions of others very well, and you can adjust to different situations and manage to build relationships with almost anyone. You can spot and address the elephant in the room. You can see the forest for the trees. And you're an effective, active listener, and you're respectful towards others while still being able to establish your authority. So if you're a manager or you're a supervising attorney, you're able to listen and be respectful while still being able to establish your own authority. And I would love to hear the comments of people who are watching. So how can attorneys benefit from being socially aware? I definitely think one of the ways, if you think about just listening skills, how are listening skills important? It's tremendously important to be able to discover how other people are thinking and feeling and what they're actually saying, what the context is. If you think about it in the context of a deposition, for example, maybe it's someone you're meeting for the first time, or it's a witness, or perhaps the client on the other side. And certainly at that point in time, you got to be listening. I mean, you have a script or an outline of questions. You have documents that you are just itching to ask about. But if you're not listening to the question, to the answers that are being given by the witness, you certainly are losing at least half the battle, because you're not able to then ask important follow-up questions. They may have just given you great information, but because you're not listening to it and you're thinking in your own mind, okay, what question am I going to ask next? That you're not able to do appropriate follow-up. And I know that's very difficult, especially for younger attorneys, but what I see in older attorneys as well, where they have just a list of questions and they're not really listening, they're just asking the questions. And they're not making appropriate follow-up. So in that context, deposition context, think about if you're a plaintiff's attorney, trying to piece together a case through different witnesses, and you're interviewing them, and you're trying to perhaps get a statement out of them. You got to be able to really listen to them and understand. Okay, they're saying X, but what is the subtext? Maybe they're actually saying why, or maybe you can lead them to why through your questioning, through appropriate follow up. But if you're not listening, then all of that is going to be lost, and you're not going to get as much really important information out of the witnesses typically would. So that's how I think social awareness is going to be extremely important. And of course, being able to read, we're talking about client relationship. Um, and Kathy says active listening is a skill; it needs to be learned. That's absolutely right. And I don't think anyone necessarily. Some people are probably born with it to some extent, but we're going to be going through a book on listening, and we're going to be talking about listening skills in this book club, definitely. So, but yeah, so going back to sort of the client relationship piece, you certainly, it's important to understand sort of what the mood is. Think about giving a pitch, for example, where you're trying to get business from a client, a corporate client, so you have a panel of people who you're trying to impress. You got to be aware not only of the speech that you're giving or the slideshow that you're doing, but also sort of the reactions of people in the crowd as well. So you're able to understand sort of the mood in the room, and you're not so focused on what you're doing that you're not actually trying to cater to the people that you're actually trying to influence. A jury is another great example of that, where you have maybe 6 or 12 folks who pretty much don't want to be there, but you have to be socially aware enough to pick up on emotions, what you think that they're feeling as you're going through the trial. It's extremely important. That's social awareness. That's the first part of the social competence skills. And then the fourth and final piece of this is the relationship management piece. Relationship management is your ability to use your awareness of your own emotions and those of others to manage interactions successfully. So again, it's all building on one another. You're able to be aware of your own emotions. You're able to be and make use of your own conduct that was influenced by your emotions. And then you're looking at the emotions of others. Now you're using all three of those to manage your interactions with others successfully. This ensures clear communication and effective handling of conflict. Relationship management is also the bond you build with others over time. People who manage relationships well are able to see the benefit of connecting with many different people, even those that they're not fond of. And an important piece of relationship management for attorneys is that if you want people to listen, if you want to persuade them, you have to practice relationship management and seek benefits from every relationship, especially the challenging one. And so going back to the last book that we did, Gary Vaynerchuk's The Thank You Economy, the big thing there was knowing that every relationship counts, that every relationship is really worth, every person is really, it's important to develop that relationship with, because even the challenging ones, because if you want to influence people, that's how you do it. You develop that relationship. And you do that through these relationship management skills and all the other skills that we talked about today. So here are some ways that you know that you lack relationship management skills. First, you might make it apparent that it's not worth developing a relationship with someone that you don't see eye to eye with. So you have someone who is on the other side, and you see this all the time with attorneys, because they have now taken their client's cause and made it so personal to them, and they lack the relationship management skills that they now have seen you and your client as the absolute enemy. And because they don't see eye to eye with you, they think it's not worth developing a relationship with you, or potentially, or even being nice to the client on the other side. So that's a total lack of relationship management skills. Sometimes it's strategy. I get that. But I think most of the time we're not talking about a strategy. We're talking about someone who basically lacks relationship management skills. If you lack relationship management skills, people feel as though they've had their opinions ignored because of your personal opinion or biases. So again, think about it in a corporate context. Think about uh, a meeting with a client or with several people that you're trying to influence. If they feel that you have some sort of personal opinion or bias against them for whatever reason, they're going to feel like they've had their opinions ignored, and that's terrible because you're never going to be able to influence them. And you might lack relationship management skills if you find fault in every situation and don't recognize people's achievements. So you have to find some blame with somebody, whether it's with yourself or with someone else, and you don't recognize the things that people have achieved. That's when you might have a lack of relationship management. On the other side, when you have great relationship management skills, you have the ability to read people and their emotions. You're able to use what you learn to create a safe and inviting forum for discussion. Again, we're talking about in a corporate context, where you're in a meeting and you have a group of people who are trying to influence or you're trying to have a discussion with. If you have great relationship management skills, then you're able to have a great forum for discussion for folks. And then certainly during tough conversations, you're concerned about maintaining a good, comfortable relationship with all parties involved. And again, I think this is an extremely important thing for attorneys, because attorneys have tough conversations all the time. Whether they're having a tough conversation with their client, they're having a tough conversation with opposing counsel. Maybe it's with in a mediation context, where you're speaking, you're addressing essentially the other side. So you're having that tough conversation, but you're still able to maintain a comfortable relationship with your opposing counsel, with that other client, with the judge, whoever you're trying to influence, you're trying to have that relationship with, they still feel comfortable. And so those are really, really great ways, this is a really great skill for attorneys to have. And so what we're going to be doing going forward is we're going to be going through all of these skills. We're going to be starting with the self-management skills, as I talked about sort of in the last book club discussion. Let me see if I can find my report again. Just sort of, I know we have some new people that have joined. So one of the things, so I took this test that came out of this book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and so the skills that I had to work on the most, although I had to work on all the skills, the skills I had to work on the most were resisting change, letting stress get the better of you, brushing off people when something is bothering you. So those were all sort of in the self-management game. And so that's what we're going to be doing next time, is we're going to be going through Chapter 4, which is essentially setting your plan for developing your emotional intelligence skills over time. And then we're going to be talking about specifically strategy number 17, which is accepting that change is just around the corner, how to develop that skill. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to jump into, after that session, and we're going to be jumping into our new book, whether it's Who Moved My Cheese, or I got another book, which is it is called Leading Change, but I found that one was more sort of in a how to develop change. If you want to make a change in an organization, how to go about doing it. I thumbed through it today. I think it's an interesting book. I'm not sure that it's quite right for what we're trying to develop, which is developing the habit or the skill of knowing that change is coming and accepting that change. how to get ready for that change. That's really more what we want to do. And I think Who Moved My Cheese, which is, maybe a more obvious title, actually I think it is helpful to develop that skill. So if anyone has any other book suggestions on how to accept change, in whether it's in a professional life or a personal life, business context, doesn't necessarily have to be a book about lawyers. Certainly, I would love all of your suggestions as well. So the next time we're going to have our book discussion will be April 5th. I'm going to be out of town all of next week, taking my family to Walt Disney World and Universal Studios Orlando, which should be a really great trip. So we're going to miss next week, but we'll definitely talk on Wednesday, April 5th, 7 p.m. Central, facebook.com/lawyersEQ. For some reason, I don't know why, Facebook Live is not allowing me to post at all to that Facebook page. That's why this video is on my personal account, and I just linked it using my cell phone in our discussion group. So hopefully next week that problem will be ameliorated. We'll see. But and if you certainly, as we go along, I'm going to be posting videos and articles throughout on all social media accounts, specifically on the facebook.com/lawyersEQ account. I also encourage you to contact me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. All of my handles there are IL Enviro Law Blog. I grew up as an environmental attorney, so when I started on social, that was what I do. Obviously, I do more than that. It's commercial litigation, construction law, a little bit of employment law as well. But that is where you can find me. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I know my wife said that I need to have some sort of fancy sign-off remark. I don't have one tonight, so if anyone has any ideas, please send that to me as well. But with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. Hope everyone has a great night, and I will see you all on April 5th. Have a good night, everyone.